Hey everyone, GM. This is a super impromptu drawing board episode. I'm doing it without a lot of planning, to be honest. But yesterday, the Philippine SEC released a new set of guidelines, and it is actually very directly impacting on crypto educators, KOLs, influencers, like myself, and possibly like many of you who are watching this video right now. So let's dive into it. I wanted to kind of go through the details, especially the parts that will be really relevant to folks who spend a lot of their time talking about crypto professionally in this country. So the title of this drawing board episode is the SEC banning crypto education? And I'm just gonna go and say immediately up front that the answer is probably no. That's not what they're aiming to do. However, there are a lot of details in here that deserve to be considered and discussed. So let's get into it. Okay, so first thing you should know, the SEC rules on crypto asset service providers. That is the name of this set of guidelines. And from now on, we have a new industry term called CASP, which was not something we had before. We were usually calling crypto exchanges VASPs. This was a BSP term. VASP is Virtual Asset Service Provider. CASP is Crypto Asset Service Provider, and this is an SEC term. BSP is kind of very specific around the exchange of crypto to peso, whereas the SEC is much more broad. No? I think we kind of saw that in the way they define crypto asset service provider. They include things like wallets or, of course, exchanges, but also things that you don't expect, like maybe protocols. I guess you could argue even games, because the way that they define these businesses, these crypto asset service providers, basically any business that touches crypto and offers crypto to the consumer. So that's basically all of these things and more, even other ideas that we've not heard of or thought of yet. So, it's very broad, and they consider their coverage to include all of those things. So, I'm not going to argue about that part too much. I don't think that, firstly, that's way above my pay grade. These are not my decisions to make, but it is what it is. So just so you know, the definition of a CASP is very broad, and it includes all companies that are local or international. So yeah, it's not just the locally registered companies. It's any business that engages in crypto. So that basically means anyone from Binance all the way down to, Axie Infinity, or maybe even DeFi protocols like Aave, LP situations like, Uniswap or PancakeSwap, or all of those things. All of those things are technically covered by these guidelines. Again, very large scope. I don't know how much of it will actually be enforced that way, but they've given themselves a lot of allowance for flexibility here. And I think that you'll see that in the way that these guidelines are currently written. There is definitely a lot of flexibility in them, so that the SEC can kind of decide on a case-to-case basis whether or not they want to pursue a particular problem or case or whatever. So, okay, here's the bit that is really relevant to folks like us. Section 7, marketing of crypto assets and crypto asset services. I'm just going to read this highlighted part. No person or entity shall engage in the marketing or inducement to purchase crypto assets or crypto asset services unless they are registered as a corporation under Philippine law and obtain the necessary licenses. So basically it means, you can't market crypto unless you are a registered CASP in the Philippines to Filipinos, right? So that's the point of this. Now, the way that marketing is defined in this guideline is actually also very broad. Here's the part where you guys need to look very closely. So the definition of marketing is any form of inducement, endorsement, or solicitation. And it might include things like communications, publications, social media posts, right? Events held in the Philippines, advertisements, editorials, airdrops is a crazy one. I wasn't really thinking that they would, kind of directly address that, but there you go. And then educational content. So this is the part where a lot of folks were a little bit worried, right? Because if you include educational content in your definition of marketing, that is basically everything out there that has to do with crypto. So the SEC does kind of try to go into some detail on this. So it's not just like, a blanket statement that every piece of educational content will be considered marketing. It's not as simple as that. There's actually a caveat right here, right underneath. It says, unless the educational content is made in good faith and purely for educational purposes. That is kind of a it's a tricky way to say it, because it kind of implies that what the true intent of the creator, of the content creator, or the influencer is. How do I know that something is made purely for educational purposes or made in good faith? So it's quite hard to read the mind of the particular content creator, but the guidelines do go into some other details underneath it, kind of like list down what might possibly constitute being made in good faith or being not made in good faith or being purely for educational purposes or not for educational purposes. That's right here. It shall not be considered made in good faith if the maker receives any value, data, or non-monetary benefits for the creation of the educational content. So basically, it's probably not a good faith tutorial or workshop or whatever if you're receiving some kind of monetary benefit, actually even non-monetary benefit for the creation. So that means that if you get paid for something, if you get paid for this content, it's very likely that you are not doing it in good faith, right? Because you're sponsored. I guess I kind of see that angle because, let's not kid ourselves. If, I don't even know which brand name to use, because I feel like if I name a brand, literally there will be some KOL somewhere who sees this video and will be offended by my example. Let me think. Actually, you know what? I'll just say this. If you did a tutorial video about Binance in the Philippines, and then you received money from Binance, I don't think there's any way that you could argue that this video is not going to be, it's not made in good faith, because you are literally accepting payment from the brand that you are making a video about, right? So that is definitely marketing. Even if you say that, I'm just educating people, I'm teaching people how to use the Binance Futures platform, you are, you're a contractor of Binance. So therefore, it is not possible for you to make that educational content in good faith because, you're working for them, right? Which, by the way, I have nothing against that. I think that it's fine for you to accept money from a brand and make content for them, educational content, marketing, whatever, right? That's fine. That could be your job. But I think that the point of these guidelines is that you are no longer an unbiased educator if you are doing that. You are definitely biased because you're biased for your employer, right? So that part's fine. I think that kind of makes sense. Well, what's interesting here is that they include things like data and then non-monetary benefits. So data, I guess, is like when you receive alpha leaks in exchange for, doing content. Every KOL knows that alpha leaks are probably the single most valuable thing you can get in the crypto industry, probably even more than money, right? Because alpha leaks put you in a position to do something really ambitious if you have insider information, right? So they include that. And then non-monetary benefits. So this one I thought was kind of sad because it kind of implies that if you were paid not even in money, if you were paid in like merch, you're technically still not a good faith educator. I feel like this is probably more minor. Like, I don't think the SEC is gonna like throw you in prison because you received a Binance hoodie. That feels like, that feels very far fetched. But they're including stuff like that because I suppose when you give a non-monetary benefit, it could be something really expensive. If they gave you a Rolex, because you made an educational content about futures trading or whatever, then in many ways that is not different from them just giving you $10,000, right? It's basically the same thing. It's just that this came in the form of a gift or a tangible asset rather than in the form of fiat or crypto or anything, right? So they're being quite broad here. Now there are exceptions. It's not as bad as that. It says provided further, it shall still be considered in good faith if the maker receives any reasonable remuneration in relation to his capacity as an educator. Okay, so the language here is a little messy. What this is saying is that if you are an actual educator, then you can receive compensation because it is part of your job, right? So, but this is kind of I think this is meant to cover academic researchers, because if you were an academic researcher, it is literally your job, your full-time job, to perform research from an academic standpoint, to study the blockchain, to study, kind of all of the various new technologies and trading strategies and all of that stuff. And you publish a paper about it. That is academic research. That is without a doubt educational content, and you need to be paid for your work. There's another one here. If the educational content is not made in good faith and for free. So, okay. So we need to kind of underline that not, right? So it's not made in good faith and not for free, then the maker shall be considered an agent or third-party service provider of a task. So basically they're putting you, the marketer, and this is a terrible way to say it, but they are putting you, the marketing agent, in the same boat as the CASP, as the crypto asset service provider. You are, you're basically going to be treated kind of the same. The rules will apply to you. And what that means is that all of the penalties and stuff like that they would normally give to the CASP could potentially also apply to you. Now, the important part here is the potential part, right? None of this stuff is absolutely guaranteed. You actually have to be found in violation. But let's go into this a little bit further. There's actually just one clause here. If the educational content does not make any mention of any CASP. So this one's kind of, I guess like if the situation was, if you were teaching about staking in general, and you were somehow able to talk about staking without mentioning any of the platforms, you would still need potentially to register as a financial advisor, because now you are kind of advising people more on a strategic level, not on a brand by brand or product by product or protocol by protocol level, right? You're kind of talking to them more broadly. I guess I can kind of see that. Anyway, the point of that clause here is really just to kind of make sure that every possible scenario where someone is talking or teaching or promoting crypto is still covered, right? So whether or not you're talking about particular brand names or whether you're just talking about crypto in general, you would still need to have some kind of rules around you. And in the case of the people who are more generalists, then you need to be a financial advisor. This next bit here is actually, I like this. This is fine. It just says all forms of marketing should be in plain, clear, and concise language. And discloses, sorry, I forgot to highlight that, discloses the associated risks, not misleading in both substance and presentation. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think all forms of marketing should be plain, clear, and concise, and should disclose associated risks. I think that's just being a responsible influencer or KOL or whatever. You know, if you're gonna talk about crypto, then you need to be able to also explain that there are risks involved and what those risks are. Now, let's go into the next couple of sections. The first one is enforcement power. Um, so this one is talking about what the SEC has the power to do if they think that you are in violation of these rules. So this section is long, so I'm just gonna list down the main things, right? So the first one is investigation. So they can investigate you, right? And that'll include things like interviewing you, calling you, maybe making you write a statement about what it is that you were engaging in. So that's the investigation part. Um, there's possibly also, if they find that based on their investigation, you were in violation of these, they will issue a cease and desist order, right? Which I assume will get mailed to you somehow. It will basically tell you, stop what you're doing, right? Officially. The third one is that there could be a hearing, right? So they could actually ask you to, go to. Actually, I don't know where it says where you would actually go. It just says summary hearing before the commission or its designated body. Number four is contempt order. So what this is, I guess it's kind of like a more serious version of the cease and desist, because at this point, if they've asked you to stop and you still kept going, you still kept producing stuff like that was in violation of these rules, then they can actually hold you in contempt, which I guess gets a little bit more serious. And then there is also suspension, right? Suspension. Now, this one is more because they can't suspend an individual, right? So what they would probably do here is they would try to suspend the operation of the CASP that you are representing. So the final one is so it's called in the document, it's called an disgorgement of profits. But what that actually means is that you pay back whatever money that you made from it. You'd have to pay it back. Although it's not specific about where you would pay it back to. It just says disgorgement of profits. Maybe you pay it to the commission as a penalty. It's not specific there. So those are the 6 things that are within their power to do. Right. Okay. The next one, the next section here is liability. Where is that here? Liability and sanctions. If you are found that to be in violation of these rules, they could penalize you, and the size of the penalty could be anywhere from 50K to 10 million. Right. So the range is basically as large as you can possibly get. Depending on how serious the violation was. I suppose I guess the point is that you can't go below 50K. The minimum penalty would be 50,000 pesos. And then there's also a 10,000 peso per day add-on if you continue to violate the guidelines. And this is the 10,000 pesos per day that would keep adding on. So it'd be 50K plus this, depending on how long that you were violating these rules, or it could be 10 million plus 10,000. I guess the point of this is that they're just giving you as big a possible range as possible, because you don't know how massive the size of the violation could be. I mean, if you were, like a nationwide an investment scam. Actually, I can give some specific examples from last year, right? So if you were part of the MetaMax scam last year on the Tron network, and you were one of the KOLs who was, promising people, that was like 100% gains over 5 or 6 weeks, then and you were, kind of the one spreading this false investment scheme, then yeah, I think that you probably deserve a much larger penalty than 50,000 pesos, right? It probably needs to be way more than that. And so, the range goes up, in other words. So I guess that kind of brings me back to the point of this whole thing. Like, what is the point, right? Um, I think that if I'm going to be, maybe I'm being optimistic, right? Maybe I'm an eternal optimist because it's part of my job to try to figure out how to make crypto integrate into our society, right? And our society includes our government, our regulatory agencies. It's not just, the citizens, it's also government, it's also businesses, all of that stuff, right? So my job, I think, is to figure out how this all integrates, maybe not in the best ways, but at least integrates in a way that allows people to benefit from crypto, right? So I'm trying to be optimistic here. So basically, I think what these rules are really trying to target are scammers, right? People who will go on YouTube, call themselves a crypto educator, call themselves a crypto guru, and then sell you something like a pyramid scheme, a Ponzi scheme, an MLM, or some kind of like last year's MetaMask scam, which in our based on our investigation of that, it looked like there was at least a couple $1 million worth of Philippine-based investments in that scam, and then within 2 months it was all gone. They never got their money back, right? So I think that scammers were the first one, yeah. And then I guess also you need to be able to disclose that you are sponsored. So I guess I'll probably say this: sponsored influencers. I think it's very important that this is just, to be honest, I think it's just fair that if you are receiving money from brands and protocols or exchanges or whatever, you should make it very obvious that you are sponsored by these exchanges. I think that if you didn't do that, then you are not being transparent, right? Your followers need to know that you are receiving a paycheck from the brands that you are talking about. I think that's just fair. But I think that, the reason why these guidelines are so broad is because the SEC itself possibly still struggles to define where we draw any of these lines. I mean, I have a hard time figuring out where to draw the line, because I know that, from an ethical or moral standpoint, I don't personally want to accept money from any crypto brand or crypto assets or crypto platform, because I don't want to be in a position where I have to say nice things about, some of these protocols. Now, granted, I also work for Gcash and Gcrypto. At least it's really obvious to everyone that when I talk about Gcrypto, yeah, I'm biased. No kidding. Like, I am an employee of the company, right? So I don't hide that. I try to be as obvious as possible, as clear as possible, so that you, the financial consumer, can make a informed decision. So, when you listen to me talk about Gcash or Gcrypto, you know that I'm biased because it's the company that I work for. However, when you hear me talking about, say, the Sonic blockchain or the Aave protocol, both of which I love, you need to know that I am not receiving any money from Sonic. I'm not receiving any money from Aave. I don't even share a referral code when I talk about these things. And that's kind of my way of letting people know that I am genuinely making content about these protocols or platforms because I like them, because I think that they are doing great things. I'm not doing it because I earn from doing so, or I'm not earning from them. I totally also understand if other influencers cannot do that, right? I mean, if you were a full-time KOL, your bread and butter is receiving sponsorships from the brands or the protocols that hopefully you believe in, and that's how you make money. I think that, being very clear about your relationship with them is the first step. You need to be able to tell people that you are completely sponsored by that brand and therefore you are not objective when you talk about them. That's one. But I think that we're entering a very challenging moment in crypto regulation here in the Philippines because um, although I would argue that you being transparent with your following is enough, I'm I think that that's enough on an ethical level. These guidelines from the SEC are saying that it's not enough. If from a legal level, there needs to be firstly you need to be working with a CASP that is registered with the SEC, and that's the part where it becomes incredibly tricky, right? Because BitGet or OKX or Bybit or anyone else is really doing any promotions here, like even Base, right? Base or ICP, none of these guys are going to register here. So instead, the responsibility for registration ends up not with them. It could end up with the folks that are promoting them, because many of the folks that are kind of promoting things like Base or ICP or these guys are friends of mine. I know that they are doing this work in their own definition of good faith. I don't think there's anything. I don't think they're scammers. They definitely believe in the project, but they're doing it almost on a volunteer basis. They're not funded in a way that they could really earn as businesses or report their activities as businesses. So that part is very tricky. There's still a lot of questions, right? And I think maybe I'll end with that, right? There's still lots of questions because unlike the BSP's VASP regulation, that was very specific to crypto exchanges and the kind of the exchange of crypto to peso. This is covering things like the way that we talk about crypto online, I think, and the way that we talk about crypto in meetups. That's much larger, I think. I mean, it's definitely larger. So there's a lot of questions that we still need to get answered. But I think in general, these are the things that you have to bear in your mind, right? The crypto KOL, the crypto influencer who is legitimately just trying to teach people how to be a trader or whatever. These guidelines were not necessarily meant to target you, but unfortunately, it might have that impact. It might have that effect because it's very hard to tell for the average consumer. It's very hard to tell the difference between a legitimate influencer and one that is teaching you how to invest in a scam. And I guess these guidelines have to cover as much ground as it possibly can in order to, cover things like scammers or people who are not transparent about who they're promoting or who is paying them. I'm sorry if this is not a very satisfying conclusion, but I guess I kind of just wanted to go through this very quickly. I imagine that, me and Bitmenas and many other KOLs and influencers probably have lots of thoughts about this over the next couple of weeks. Again, the rules will take effect at the end of this month or at the very start of July. So I imagine over the next few weeks, there's going to be a lot of open conversations about this. I'm definitely going to try to have a conversation on the Bitmenas webcast within the next couple of weeks. And so good luck to everyone, I guess. Hope you guys take a little bit of time to read through these guidelines for yourself. And when we schedule a more formal like Q&A or ask me anything or something like that, bring your questions. Let's try to work through it together and figure out how to move forward. Peace and see you guys in the next one.